Ladies and gents, welcome. My name is Wasmatic, and yes, I know Odyssey has been out in alpha for a week, and already I'm making a best missions for making money fast video. Well, talk about jumping the gun. I know, but what I'm doing here is laying the foundations for a piece of analysis that can spread over a long period of time. So, bear with me, because whilst I would openly admit that the findings may be initially inconclusive, this is the start of a process which I intend to carry on through all phases of alpha, and as the suits unlock, we will see how those suits change the results of the findings. I'm going to go into a few graphs with you, so if you like the geeky stuff, then stick with me. So I undertook some missions, and what I did is I timed the missions and I did the missions by category. I'll talk you through initially the methodology. So I took the stance that everyone starting would be starting as a new player, so all the missions start at Hopkins City. If I failed and went to the penal colony, I would take a trip back to Hopkins. So that was the base point for which all missions started from. Every mission I selected, in every mission category, I took the closest, highest paying mission I could find. I did not time the time it took me to find the mission. I did not include in the timer. So the timer started once I had found the mission. All the missions were played for success, so I played them as carefully as possible, not speed running. I made sure that if I had a stealth mission, I spent most of my time making sure that I was safe. The results may not indicate that, but I definitely played for success, not for speed running, so there was no impatience on the run through. I undertook 2 practice missions per category. Now, with hindsight, I do not think that was enough, but with Alpha having only been out for a week, I decided to try and push things along quite quickly. This has taken me all week. This has been an inordinate amount of time undertaking 6 missions per category. I started the timer upon mission acceptance. The time stopped at the mission hand-in, so it did include the apex travel times. All missions were completed in a cyclical category rotation. So what that means is I started off maybe with a procurement mission and did 1 after the 2 practice missions. Then I would move on and do a salvage mission, and then I would move on and do a combat mission. So the learning curve was spread across all the mission categories. I didn't do a learning curve in, say, combat, learn the locations, and then move that learning through to the next mission category, which would have, at least in some small way, skewed the outcome. The timer includes purchases of consumables, so if I clicked go when I accepted the mission and started the timer, I would then run and pick up energy cells and health packs if needed. The times for the failed missions were included in the totals for the time taken to undertake all 6 missions. All travel was, obviously at the moment, by Apex shuttle, so there was no travel time in any of my own ships. All missions were played in a solo instance, so the presence of any other players couldn't skew what was happening at each location. All missions were played with the same weapons. I had a laser pistol and I had the AR-40 kinetic rifle. All missions were completed in a salvage suit, fairly obviously because the salvage suit is the only suit available in Phase 1 of the Alpha. And neither suit nor weapons were upgraded for any of these missions, so I held off. I've not upgraded any of my gear. I wanted to say, starting at Hopkins, using just the salvage suit, where can we get to as a new player? I would be remiss if I didn't take into account some variables that could affect the outcome of this, rather Mickey Mouse analysis. But first is me, the player's skill, my mechanical aim and general gameplay approach. There's a variable which will be different from player to player. Now, I'm not a pro FPS player. I'm not bad, but I'm not great. So bear that in mind. There is an element of RNG in the missions. So, for example, salvage missions, you may get something that spawns outside of a building. You don't need to clone anyone. You don't need to introduce any risk. You can go to a container, pick it up, and Foxtrot Oscar. So there is an RNG element in all of these missions, but I think as time goes by, as we progress the analysis, that will start to become less of a factor. Obviously, there are bugs. A couple of missions failed. I think only 2, off the top of my head that I can remember, failed. I'm going to call up my spreadsheet now. Looking at the failure of the missions, There's 2 out of the 36. So the bugs only actually caused a failure of the mission twice. Both times I think it was a locker that was bugged. There was no code and I couldn't open for salvage missions, I think. Yeah, 2 failures in the salvage missions. So there's that to bear in mind. Mission familiarity and learning curve. So obviously I did them in rotation to try and spread the learning curve, but as you do the missions upon repeat and finding the missions that were in close proximity to Hopkins, I started to learn the layout of the different facilities that I were visiting. So there will be a learning curve which in theory improved the results as I went through the missions in rotation by category, but that may not have been the case in this instance. Only the salvage suit was available for all missions, and by that I mean there was a variable mission applicability. So in phase 2, for example, which is starting tomorrow, you get the combat suit. And undertaking combat missions in a salvage suit, I assume, and I'm guessing here, means that you can't carry as much ammunition, and that was a big problem in combat, was running out of ammo, and you probably don't have any armor, so any kinetic armor in the suit. I'm guessing here, but obviously the combat suit will give you an advantage in combat, so we have to bear in mind that the outcome may be skewed towards salvage missions. Mission durations over 6 missions. So now we get into the nuts and bolts of it. So the missions that I failed the most of were procurement missions. I failed all of them. So that's reflected in the time, 96 minutes in total. The timer stopped when I failed the mission. So when I died, for example. Mostly the missions failed because I was spotted trying to stealth into a higher security level location. Stealth, absolutely key. Without the combat suit, though, you couldn't fight your way through. And then the other category where I failed all of the missions were operations and combat. Now I'm going to openly admit here, I was learning the combat missions and it took me a long time to work out why it was going wrong. I think I know now, so I think as we progress the analysis and I start to do this on a regular basis, we're going to see the analytics change slightly. The combat, I would kind of say, take with a pinch of salt. In fact, I would say take all of these results as a pinch of salt, but the combat missions particularly, 100 minutes for that and 100 minutes for operations. So those 3 categories that I failed were the categories with the lowest total time, obviously, because they didn't have to travel back and hand in. Risk, reward, and mission successes. So the missions that I succeeded the most were the transport missions at 83%. Salvage missions I succeeded at 67% of the time. That's actually just, I think, 1 mission difference. Yes, so I completed 5 out of 6 for transport. I completed 4 out of 6 for salvage. The 5 out of 6 for the transport, I failed one of the transport missions, and it was my own fault because I didn't disable the turrets. So what actually happened in the mission that I failed was that I managed to make it back to my Apex transport ship. I got in, we were taking off, and the turret shot us down, and we exploded, and I died. That was user error. Had I been into the command center and disabled the turrets, that would be a 5 out of 5. That would be a 6 out of 6. Easiest missions to complete by my initial analysis. Transport, without a doubt, very low risk. Salvage, one of those missions that I failed was because of a bug. We could have completed 5 out of 6 for those. So in theory, had I done things right on the transport missions, I would have done 6 out of 6. Had I not encountered a bug on, it was Kukumane Genetics, looking at the sheets here. Had I not encountered that locker bug, I would have done 5 out of 6. Actually, relatively speaking, makes little difference. The transport missions are by far the easiest. Anyway, total income across all of the 6 missions. Obviously, operations, combat, and procurement, I got naff all. The support missions, I completed 2, but earned 440,173 credits. Whereas the salvage missions, whilst I completed fewer, only 4 out of 6, I actually earned just over 1 million credits, nearly 1.1 million credits. And then the transport, which was the easiest by far, the mission payouts were a lot lower. There's another thing that I need to mention in terms of the mission payouts for transport. The mission payouts were changed. There was a patch that changed the payouts for transport missions. So initially the transport missions were paying between 88 and 94k per mission. I did 2 missions at 89k, and then following that the mission payouts average dropped between 58 and 64k. So we saw about a 20 or 30k drop in the average mission payout. So that would obviously skew the results slightly should the transport mission payouts remain the same as they've changed in that patch. Then this will obviously stay the same in terms of its results. So salvage missions look to be not the lowest risk, but certainly the highest payout upon success. Income rates then. So if you wanted to churn through regular, if you were going to choose this as a method of making money, is doing FPF missions. The salvage missions are obviously showing as the highest income per minute and the highest income per hour, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So 6,181 credits per minute. That said, let's bear in mind the suit that we are wearing in phase 1 of Alpha is the salvage suit. So that's a big thing to consider here, the right suit for the right job. And then extrapolating that to hourly rates, salvage comes in at 370.8k per hour, followed 225,064 for transport, and then support missions at 144,319. But again, I only succeeded in 2 support missions. So bumping those support missions up by 1 or 2 could potentially see it competing with at least 2nd place for transport. So what I did then is I tried to model some of the procurement missions actually, and some of the missions in other categories were offering payouts on occasion of over 1 million credits, 1.1 million, I think I saw at one point. So what I did is I then modelled, and I chose the procurement category to do this, I modelled what it would look like if I'd actually completed one mission at 1 million credits. So that only gives the procurement, so I put it in procurement, the option then completed one mission out of 6 at 1 million credits. The success rate obviously only 17% because it's 1 out of 6. But what does that do for the earnings? Well, you complete one procurement mission at 1 million credits, that instantly sticks you into the highest earning category. There are some elements in procurement where you need to undertake combat, but equally you would need the salvage suit potentially to access some areas if there are no NPCs there that you can scam. So I think it's starting to become abundantly clear that there is a risk reward element. If you can practice at the missions that give the really high payouts of 1 million credits plus, then you don't need to do sort of the grind on, say, the salvage missions at 370.8k per hour. Now, I appreciate all of this is very early findings. We're in an alpha stage, but what does it show us? Well, potentially, I'm just crap. I'm crap at FPS because my success rate across the board was pitifully low. So we have to consider that actually I'm just not very good at FPS games, or I was actually just rubbish at playing the game. So bugs do play a part, albeit very small, but I think Frontier are acknowledging that there are some bugs in terms of mission difficulty levels not being reflected properly on the mission terminal. There is an option to consider there, which is perhaps sometimes the missions were more difficult than I had thought. Oh, the other thing to mention as well is that all the missions I undertook were at threat level 0. So they were all starter missions. The risk can be worth the reward if you can put the time in. If you're prepared to put the time in and spend 2 hours just to complete one mission, then perhaps that procurement mission at 1 million credits is worth the time investment. 6 missions per category may not be enough to paint an accurate picture, even if you take those results and extrapolate it out. So I think what I need to do is to keep throughout all phases of the alpha, keep consistently measuring time. There is going to be potentially a change. I am now going to upgrade my weapons, so that again will skew the results, but I'm not going to spend the entire alpha playing with starter weapons, so longer term analysis is required. Transport missions are the lowest risk churn, so if you just want to get a guaranteed income and you just want to keep churning out missions, just going, picking something up, bringing it back, etc, etc, that's the easiest option to do. These initial findings are showing us that the salvage missions are the easiest income churn with the lowest risks. If you factor in that one of those missions was not completed due to a bug, and you're looking at 5 missions out of 6, if at this point in time, and bearing in mind that we were wearing the salvage suit, if at this point in time I had to pick where was I going to churn my money making in Odyssey, just doing FPS missions, salvage would be it. It's in alpha, so everything is subject to change, like the payouts in the transport missions. So again, take these findings with a very, very big pinch of salt. It may actually represent nothing. It may be because I was wearing the salvage suit. I think as time goes by, I'm going to start to see how these results unfold, wearing perhaps a combat suit doing combat missions may give me a greater chance of success. And without equivocation, Odyssey missions pale into insignificance compared to things like the Road to Riches or Rubigo passenger missions for making money. They are minuscule sums of money. That said, if you want to grind out missions to try and find items to upgrade your suit and your weapons, then potentially salvage missions may be it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. That's my initial finding. From doing this measurement, it's taken me a long time, and now I'm just happy I can get on and play the game. I will keep measuring my mission successes. So when the combat suit comes out, I'm going to wear that and I'm going to do all the missions again. I'm going to start adding to the spreadsheet that I've built, and I'll report back in at a regular basis and just say, here's how the picture is changing. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's a very Mickey Mouse piece of analysis, but I've really enjoyed doing it, and I'm just happy I can get on with playing the game now. If you want to see me streaming, I stream on Twitch 3 nights a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays from 1900 British summertime, which is 2000 Central European time, for about 4 or 5 hours. And I will be producing more videos as soon as I can get around to doing it, once I've recovered from doing this big piece of analysis. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.